Hey guys, I'm Myra with Atomic Baby Cosplay, and today I'm going to talk about my top tips for darts. So first, we want to talk about what is a dart. A dart is a type of seam that's commonly used for alterations, but is also marked on patterns sometimes, that gives shape to a garment. It's usually used in areas where there's curves, so maybe on the waist going up towards the bust, or there's side bust darts. Sometimes there's some on the back of pants. It just kind of depends, but darts are used to give shape to a garment. So what does a dart look like? A dart looks like this. So basically it's just a simple seam seen from the front. That's all you're going to see. And on the back you can see it's kind of like an elongated triangle, like a wedge that you've sewn out of the fabric. So tip number one is going to be to mark it properly. So if you're doing a dart that's from a pattern, make sure that you mark that properly. Do that after you cut out your pattern piece, but before you do any sewing at all. Any sewing, make sure that you mark your dart first. There are lots of ways of transferring markings onto your pattern piece. One of the ways that I like to do for darts specifically is to stick my pattern piece on top of my fabric, cut the pattern out, then at the top of the dart, that top point of the triangle, because you'll see a dart kind of looks like this when you see it marked on a pattern. It's like a little triangle thing, like a tall triangle. So at the top, the very top point, I will stick a pin through the pattern into the piece, and then I'll lift up the pattern piece through the pin, and you can kind of draw right where the pin is going into the fabric, and then I know that's the very top point of my dart. Then what I'll do is I'll put the pattern piece back down, and I'll take two small snips in the fabric down near the bottom where the edges, the legs of my dart are, right? So the bottom of that triangle, I'll take two little tiny snips right here and here, just little ones within the seam allowance, so less than I'd say 1/4 of an inch, just tiny little snips. Next, what I do is I take a ruler and I literally run a ruler from the very top of my dart to one of the legs, and then I do it on the other side, and I use tailor's chalk to mark from the top to the leg. And that's how I get a really precise dart. Tip number two is to press your dart thoroughly before you sew it. So before you sew the dart, press your fabric. That's going to help your dart to stay in place while you're sewing and not kind of move from side to side. So press your dart into your fabric. How you do that is literally once you have the dart set up, I usually stick one pin in horizontally or parallel to the bottom edge of my fabric, horizontally at the bottom where the legs are, and then I stick one pin in vertically where the top of my dart is. That kind of holds it in place mostly, and then I will iron over that. Be careful if you have plastic pins that you don't melt them, but if you have metal pins or you can just avoid the pin heads, then you're fine. So I will iron straight over my dart just to make it stay in place extra nicely for while I'm sewing. Tip number three is to sew off the fabric. When you're sewing your dart, you're going to sew at the top. You're just going to sew off the fabric. Literally, here's my dart and I'm sewing up across so. Here's where I'm starting, here's where I want it to end. So I'm going to literally just sew like this, straight off the fabric. What that does is it means you don't have a long flat line, which is what causes bubbling. You want to have that come to a really sharp point. That'll help prevent bubbling. Tip number four is also on that note. You're going to backstitch at the beginning of your dart, but not at the end of your dart. So when you start your dart, a dart kind of goes, you're going like this, right? So you're gonna start sewing, you're gonna backstitch to lock that stitch in place, and then you're going to keep sewing, and you're gonna go off your fabric, and you're not gonna backstitch at the top. If you backstitch, what happens is sometimes when you backstitch, you don't backstitch exactly the same way. You might backstitch kind of like this, or like this. And then you're going to end up with a messy, wonky looking dart. So what you're going to do instead is you're going to sew straight off the fabric. You're going to leave a really long strand of thread coming off of your fabric when you go to cut that. You're going to tie a quick knot with those two strands from the bobbin and the thread. You're going to tie a quick knot, and then you're going to trim that. And then your thread will stay locked in place, but you will also not have a very bulky seam, which will help your dart to look nicer. And finally, tip number five is going to be to press your dart over a ham. A ham, for those of you not in the know, is not a piece of meat in this context. It is literally kind of a hard cushion. It's a smallish cushion, usually they're small, a small-ish cushion that is densely packed with usually batting or cotton or something. But wait, the point is that you're able to iron over it and it maintains its shape, so you use it for busts and other curved areas so that you can really get a nice press on it. If you press your dart really, really nice and flat with your ham, you're going to end up with a really beautiful dart. And that's it, guys. I hope this was helpful for some of you. Sewing darts can be really challenging, I know, but thank you so much for watching. If you want to catch more of my videos, definitely click subscribe. I do videos every Tuesday and Thursday, except for this week when I definitely did this on Wednesday because Dragon Con is coming and I'm overwhelmed. And also, if you'd love to learn more about sewing or cosplay, I'd love to have you in our free sewing community called Fellowship of the Seam. It's over on Facebook. I'll put a link in the description box down below, so definitely hop on over there and say hi. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye!